Om. Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahmavidvaram. Okay, so today we're going to see the summary of Taittiriya Upanishad. Summary of Taittiriya Upanishad, the Brahmananda Valli. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the topics clearly. Then at the end, if anybody has questions, we can go over them. This Upanishad has 3 different sections: Shiksha Valli, Brahmananda Valli, and Bhrigu Valli. We saw the second portion of this Upanishad. This is the one that relates to the Panchadashi chapter that we studied. Panchadashi chapter 3. This means the bliss that is Brahman. This Upanishad is divided into 9 anuvakas, 9 different parts. So we're going to see each part. Before we enter into the parts, the Shanti mantra or the invocation of this Upanishad is Om Sahana Vavatu, which we chant all the time. And the brief meaning, just to recap, is Om Sahana Vavatu means may we be protected. Sahanau Bhunaktu, may we actually enjoy the result of the knowledge that we are studying. Sahaviryam Karavavahe, may we put forth effort into this study. Tejasvina Vadhitam Astu, whatever we study, may it shine forth in the moment that we need it. Because we might be studying all of this now, but at the very moment when we need this knowledge, it might not be there. So Tejasvi, may that knowledge be brilliant when we need it. Mavid Vishavahai, may we not have any ill feelings or ill thoughts towards each other. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Peace with all the phenomenal forces. Everything should be peaceful. Peace around us. Around us, it should also be peaceful. And peace within us. Our minds should also be peaceful to take up such a study. And Upanishad means Brahmavidya, the knowledge of the self. So here, in the first part, there are 4 topics right away given. Attainment of Brahman, nature of Brahman, how to realize Brahman, and the result of the realization. The first thing that the Upanishad says is Brahmavedapnoti Param. The knower of Brahman attains the supreme. This is a very, very deep statement, because normally in life when we know something, we don't attain it. We have to just get it, right? If we know of a place, let's say we know of New Mexico, but in order to attain New Mexico, we have to go there. We know of a certain type of food, but in order to taste it, we have to get it and put it in our mouth. With this, with the knowledge of Brahman, it's not knowing and doing. It is just knowing. It is just knowing because it's already you. There's no doing. We don't have to do anything. We just have to remove the ignorance. That's the only thing that's required. I was reading one of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshiji's books, and he says that everybody is already realized. It's just a matter of knowing it. It's just a matter of removing the ignorance that we are not the self. So it's just knowing, right? What is this Brahman that we have to know? Upanishads have given us 3 distinct lakshanas. Lakshanas means indications, because we can't really define Brahman per se. Brahman is beyond words. But we have to find some way to indicate it so that we understand it. And Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, these 3, existence, consciousness, infinitude, they are really one and the same, but just coming from different angles. So we say Satyam, or existence, infinite existence, when we want to come from the angle of saying that Brahman does not change. There's nothing that changes in Brahman. Because it does not change, it's not an effect of anything. Because when something is an effect of something, it changes. Like a sprout coming out of a seed. A sprout changes. And it's not a cause, because the cause also changes. Like the seed becoming a sprout. So it's not a cause or effect, because it's unchanging. And it is. Existence is to say it is there. It's not that it's not there, it is there. And it's also non-negatable. We will never lose the experience of ourselves. We may lose the ego, the waker, when we go to dream. And we may lose the dreamer when we go to deep sleep. And we might even lose the ego in waking state, when we're totally involved in something. But we will never lose our sense of self. Now, having said that Brahman is existence, a doubt might arise as to, is it an inert thing? Is Brahman just inert, some kind of existence? And that's why we say jnanam. It is consciousness. It's not an inert, changeless presence. It is consciousness. And it is not also the knower ego, the knower, the thinker, the feeler, the perceiver, because that identity keeps changing. It is the one that illumines the ego. And just to tell us that this existence, which is unchanging, and this consciousness, which illumines all, the body, the mind, the intellect, illumines all thoughts, to tell us that it is one infinite being, it says anantam. Anantam meaning it's infinite. There's not a Brahman in every single person. Everyone has a little Brahman. No, it is one infinite being. And all of these are just appearances in that one. And this one is beyond any time, beyond space, beyond object. If you remember in Panchadashi, first it says that Brahman is nitya, eternal. And Brahman is sarvagata, all-pervading. And Brahman is the self of all objects. And then it goes on to say that actually Brahman is not eternal, it's beyond time. Brahman is not all-pervading, it's beyond space. And Brahman is not the self of all objects, it alone is. All things are superimposed on Brahman. Like this body, we cannot establish the existence of this body without our experience of it. So this body is not saying, I am here, feel me. Without our experience of anything, we cannot establish the existence of a thing. The world is not saying on its own, I exist, I exist. It is when we experience it that we can establish the existence of it. And all experiences are made possible by consciousness. So nothing is really experienced until we establish the existence of it through consciousness. All right. Now, how do we realize Brahman? It says, Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. We don't have to go anywhere to realize this being, Brahman. Brahman is within us, and it is recognized as the witness of all of our thoughts. That witness of all of our thoughts is that is known as Atman. Consciousness with respect to the individual is called as Atman. But once we are able to transcend all of those thoughts, drop all of those thoughts, that same consciousness is known as Brahman, consciousness with respect to totality. So we get to the witness of our thoughts, and we still feel there's some kind of limitation because I am the witness of my thoughts, but I'm not the witness of your thoughts, and you're not the witness of my thoughts. So how is there one Brahman? When those thoughts cease, what we will find is one indivisible existence as it is, with nothing, so to say, appearing in it to seemingly cause any division. We ought to remember that divisions are only when we open our eyes and our mind. When we close our eyes and our mind, there's no division. There's no division. Only when our mind is there, everything is divided. Everything seems divided. So division is only an appearance. And because we put so much emphasis on division, we think that there are many, many consciousnesses. But beyond division, there is the one indivisible self. Why should we realize Brahman? The one who realizes it enjoys all desires being united with Brahman. So here it says that Soshnute sarvan kaman saha brahmana vipashchiteti. This means that we are ever at unrest in the world because we put so much effort to get our object of desire. And the mind is always swinging, want to get a desired object. But actually step back for a moment and think, where does that desired object reside? It resides in consciousness. Where does the desirer reside? The desirer resides in consciousness. Actually, there's no desired object. There's no desirer. They're just appearances. It's an appearance of duality, one wanting the other. But if you go down to their core, they're the same. So instead of wanting this and wanting that, the realized person just closes their eyes and says, everything is already in me. How can I want? It's like wanting something in your dream. And then when you find out it's already in me, why would I want it? So in this way, the knower of Brahman attains fulfillment, contentment. Contentment is when I don't want anything more. We also talked about this, that it doesn't mean that the enlightened being will say, I don't want to eat food or I don't want to sleep. They will never want anything to complete them. Of course, these little things to maintain the body they will do, but they will not want anything, so to say, that will complete them because they're already complete. Now, in the second part of the first, still the first Anuvaka or portion, it explains Srishti Prakriya, which means how did this creation come about? If we want to understand how creation comes about, can you please tell us? And then it starts to go into the koshas. So first it says from Brahman, etasmat, tasmat va etasmat. From Brahman, which is Atman, tasmat va etasmat, came space, air, fire, water, and earth. So this is a way of illustrating creation. Now remember, as we discussed before, in the Upanishads, there are so many theories of creation that we're not meant to get hung up on them. We're only meant to understand that the source of all creation is actually Brahman. And Brahman is called the Nimitta and Upadana Karana, which means Brahman is the sentient cause and the material cause. So here, what we need to understand is, let us say, the potter and clay. The potter and clay. The potter is the sentient cause and the clay is the material cause. Yeah. So when the potter, who's a sentient cause, takes the clay, which is a material cause, potter is able to make a pot. And potter has to act on it. Potter has to actually go take the clay, mold it, fix it, and make a pot. But here we're saying the sentient cause and the material cause are one and the same. So Brahman is the sentient cause like the potter, but Brahman is also the material cause, which is the clay. So because Brahman is both the sentient and material cause, Brahman doesn't have to go out to make a pot. Brahman doesn't have to act to make a pot. Brahman just appears as it. Because the sentient material cause is the same. So what is the world now? It is just an appearance. It is Brahman's natural expression to appear. And there's no purpose for it. Remember, it's just an expression of Brahman. Brahman's expression is just to appear. That's it. If you and I don't see it as Brahman, it's our limitation. Like the example I gave you of the sky. The sky is not really blue. It's infinite. But because we cannot see so far, we see it as blue. Brahman is infinite. But because we cannot grasp that far, we think that Brahman is many, manifold. So from Brahman, this whole world appears. So Brahman is not actually a cause. We use the word cause, but remember, Brahman is not actually a cause per se, because Brahman doesn't change, doesn't become modified. Things just appear on Brahman, as Brahman. And in order to get to Brahman now, we're going to go through all of the 5 sheaths, because it's very difficult to understand what is this Brahman. So we use the Shakha Chandra Nyaya, which means that if there's a moon we want to indicate, but people have a hard time seeing the moon, they go climb up the branch of a tree or point to the branch of the tree and say, look at the branch of the tree. And then when you look at the branch of the tree, it's pointing to the moon. It's pointing to the moon, but not touching the moon. In the same way, these 5 koshas or sheaths, they point to Brahman, but they don't touch Brahman. Brahman is untouched, unaffected, right? So we use this methodology, and we always start from the grossest layer first, because that's what we are most familiar with. So that is the Annamaya Kosha, food sheath. And it's called sheath because it as though covers the reality. What covers the reality is the identification with the sheath. So when we are identified with the food sheath so strongly, it covers who we are. And that's why it's called sheath. It's a covering. And the Annamaya Kosha or food sheath, on each of those sheaths, they're going to be shown as a human being, as a person. As a person, it's going to be shown that in the Annamaya Kosha, the teacher just says, this is my head, this is my right side, this is my left side, this is my core, this is my bottom. That's how the teacher says. Now, here in the section 2 of Brahmananda Valli, now he's going to explain the glory of the food sheath and then the vital air sheath. So what is the glory of food? So food sheath is like Brahman because all beings are born from food, sustained by food, and dissolve into food. So everything is happening in food alone, food anna. And food is medicine for all. Food is that which is eaten and that which eats also. We eat food, but when we overeat food, food eats us in the sense of disease. A lot of disease comes to our body, and that disease eats us up. Those who contemplate on food, they meditate on food as Brahman, and they respect it, they regard it, they appreciate it. They will always have food. They will always have abundance in their life. So the first stage is to really know that the first sheath is the food sheath. It's the grossest one. This is who we most identify with. But remember, there's something inner to this. So in each of it, he says there's something inner to it, something which is subtler, something which governs it. And that is the Pranamaya Kosha. So the Pranamaya Kosha, again, if we were to imagine that it's a human being, Prana is the head, Dhyana is the right side, Apana the left side, space or Akasha is the core of it, and earth or Prithvi is the tail. So if we were just to imagine what Pranamaya Kosha is, it's like this. And it fills up the Annamaya Kosha. Then in the third Valli, he goes into Pranamaya Kosha, the glory, and Manomaya Kosha. So Pranamaya Kosha, prana is the life of all creatures. It is life. It's the source of life for everybody. So it may be seen as Brahman. And those who meditate on prana as Brahman, they will attain a full lifespan. So it's easy to see why people would see the food sheet as Brahman, because the lakshana or the indicator of Brahman is that from which everything arises, in which everything is sustained, into which everything is dissolved. That comes in the third section of Taittiriya Upanishad. So it's easy to see prana as Brahman. But remember, this is also modified. Same with the food sheath. Food sheath changes, prana changes, and they both are insentient. They both can be controlled. So therefore, this cannot be Brahman. Then he goes to the Manomaya Kosha or the mind sheath, with Yajurveda being the head, Rigveda the right side, Samaveda the left side, Adesha the instructions as the core, and Atharva as the tail. And then he explains the glory of Manomaya Kosha, and he goes to Vijnanamaya Kosha. So glory is the mind is a very beautiful thing. It is a tool to know the Vedas, And all ideas, they start from the mind, they're sustained by the mind, and they dissolve into the mind. So the mind could also be seen as Brahman. So some people contemplate on the mind as Brahman by connecting with the total mind, because everything rises by thought, right? When we want to do something, it starts with a thought that yes, I will do something. And the thought is the one that sustains it. And then the thought is the one that it dissolves into. When we say, I don't want to do it anymore, everything stops. When we say, I want to do it, everything starts. When we say, I don't want to do it, everything stops. So the mind is Brahman. And the result of those who meditate on the mind as Brahman, connect to the total mind, they don't have fear. It says they'll never have fear because they always feel connected to totality. They always feel protected by totality. However, we also know that the mind is something that's changing. The thoughts are changing. The thoughts are insentient. They cannot reveal themselves. They need something to reveal them. And the thoughts can also be controlled. They arrive and depart. And there are times when we are thoughtless. So therefore, this cannot also be the self. Then he goes to Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellectual sheath. And the head of the intellectual sheath is Shraddha. Should be a long A. Shraddha. Faith. Ritam, righteousness, is the right side. Satyam, truth, is the left side. Yoga, the integration of everything that we have learned, is the center. And the tail of it is Mahat, the total intellect. So in Vijnanamaya Kosha, it's all about this. It's like Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. So Shraddha is when we listen to the teachings with faith. Ritam is when we analyze and clear our doubts. Satyam is when we try to abide by the knowledge. And yoga is when our life becomes fully integrated into it. And Mahat is the tail. And if you remember, in this Vijnanamaya Kosha, we talked all about connecting as oneness, realizing that we are actually one. So in the fifth Brahmananda Valli, the fifth portion, he talks about this, the glory of Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha. Vijnanamaya Kosha is seen as Brahman because it's the doer, performer of actions. Yes, everything rises with the thought, is sustained by the thought, and dissolves in the thought. But there is somebody who is saying, I will do. There is a doer behind that thought. So the thought is not so powerful after all. There's a doer. And that doer is the intellectual sheath. So the upasana or the contemplation is meditate on the intellect as Brahman and connect with totality, connect with the total intellect. And as we said, in so many levels, at the body level, we are one, we're all made from 5 elements. At the prana level, we are one, we're all breathing the same air. At the mind level, we are all united in thought. That's why we can feel each other's emotions without even speaking. At the intellectual level, so many people have contributed to our personality that we are made of totality. It's very difficult to say where Shubhani lies because so much of what I know or what you know is given by so many people. So we are all actually one. And the one that contemplates on Brahman as totality, as a total intellect, they will never see themselves different from totality. And this is a really great practice because all we see is oneness. Yes, there are underlying differences in the body, in the thoughts, and the ideas, ideology, but we always start from a level of oneness. And because this person is always starting from a level of oneness, their desires tend to manifest because individual desires are quite weak. They're only one thought flow. But imagine if our desires are aligned with totality. That is a really powerful vibration. And whenever there is what we call samashti sankalpaha, meaning a resolve of totality, it happens because so many people's vibrations are in it. Unfortunately, whether it's a good resolve or a bad resolve, it will happen because it's the force of totality. But it's a great force. It's a great force. Then he starts to introduce Anandamaya Kosha. The Anandamaya Kosha, Priya, is the head. When we see something and we go inwards, that's Priya. Moda is when we hold something, touch something, and we go inwards. That's moda. Pramoda is when we become one with something and totally go inwards. When we eat something and totally digest it or chew it, we become one with it. We go inwards. And the core of it all is this feeling of bliss. But where does this bliss come from? It comes from Brahman. We don't know it, but the bliss comes from within. It doesn't come from outside. That's why every time we feel peak happiness, we close our eyes. We let go of the object. We let go of the ego. And when we let go of the object and the ego, that's when bliss really manifests. So the ego is not the end all, be all, because the ego also disappears. And in fact, it is when the ego disappears that great bliss is expressed. When we get fully lost in the moment, losing the object and the ego, bliss truly manifests. So there's something subtler than the intellectual sheath. An intellectual sheath is not Brahman because we have seen the ego dissolves. In deep sleep, the ego dissolves. Even in waking state, the ego dissolves. Is this bliss sheath Brahman? No, because this bliss sheath has gradations. It gets deeper, 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 and it is produced by something. When I see a nice sunrise, then I go within. It's caused by something. When I see a nice starry night, I go inward. It's caused by something. In this bliss, it comes and it goes. So it comes, it goes, it's caused by something, has gradations. So this is not Brahman. And it is not self-revealing also. Even that bliss, that silence needs to be revealed. So therefore, now he says, all of this is not Brahman. Now, we're going to go on a slightly different topic. In Panchadashi, if you remember, after crossing all the 5 sheets, the student asked the question, well, if none of this is Brahman, then Brahman doesn't exist. Well, what else is there? You went through all of the sheets and nothing's left. So therefore, there's nothing. The teacher says, who is the one who is witnessing that there is nothing? That is Brahman. So we go into 7 proofs of the existence of Brahman. Before we do that, it says something very beautiful. Asanneva sabhavati, asad brahmeti veda chet. The one who thinks that Brahman is not there, they make themselves asat. meaning they lose out on life. Asti Brahmeti Ched Veda. And the one who knows that there's something called Brahman or has faith that there's something called Brahman, Santa Menam Tato Viduriti. They exist. Why? The one who does not have faith that Brahman is there, they lose out not only on gaining the highest truth, but on the path to truth. If somebody doesn't believe that there's something greater, something higher, something more divine to pursue, then they're not going to walk the path of dharma. They're not going to experience the joy of selfless action, of spiritual life, of feeling one with others, of a sattvic mind. They will never experience these joys, and they will miss out on life because they do not believe that there's anything higher. But the one who has faith that Brahman is there not only will have the ability to gain Brahman, attain Brahman, but will also experience the joy of spiritual life, the joy of using our potential for the welfare of others, the joy of having a peaceful mind, the joy of connecting with God. So many joys are experienced when we have faith that there's something higher, because we work towards it. So the one who does not believe misses out on this joy. Following this, there are actually only 2 questions in Taittiriya Upanishad, but we pose the first question because that's the thought flow that's happening. So the first question that is implied is, does Brahman really exist? Because after negating the 5 sheets, is there really Brahman there? Second question, does an ignorant attain Brahman after dropping their body? If Brahman is already yourself, so does the ignorant one also attain Brahman? 3, does a wise one attain Brahman after dropping their body? Should be dropping their body, right? Now, here are 7 proofs of Brahman's existence. First, answering the first question. Reason 1, Brahman is there because Jagat Karanatvat, because Brahman is the cause of the world. So here, meaning, remember what I said, that Brahman is not actually the cause of the world. Brahman is the source of the world, source of the world. So Brahman is appearing as the world because there's a substratum, and that very thing appears as the world because the world is. There must be a source to the world, and that source to the world is Brahman. If we're seeing everything is existing, it is, it's appearing, there must be some kind of source. That's Brahman. And here it says that Brahman also Bahusyam Prajayeti had willed, may I become many. This is just a language that is used in the Upanishad. We should not get confused. Not that Brahman actually willed. This is just to show that Brahman is a conscious entity, is consciousness. So 1, it's the substratum of the whole world, but it's also consciousness. As I said, Brahman naturally appears as many. We can come up with all great reasons that the world is as it is because of the karmas of the jivas, or because God wanted Leela, or all of these other reasons that are put there. But really, that which is complete, full, and whole has no purpose to create, to be, to engage, to become rather. It is just its natural expression to appear. That's all. Like in the dream, it's natural that the dreaming mind appears as many. It's natural. There's no purpose to it. It's just natural. It's natural that the dreaming mind appears as sentient, insentient, appears as a variety of things, appears as inside and outside. It just happens. Like that, Brahman's natural expression is just to appear. Therefore, Jagat Karanatvat. This is reason 1. Second proof of Brahman's existence, Guhayam Upalabhyamanatvat. Brahman is recognized as I in the cave of the intellect or in the heart. So we have that feeling, we have that experience that there is I. When everything is negated, when the mind is completely quiet, whole world is negated, and the body and the thoughts and the ego is negated, something there remains. And that is in the cave of our heart. We actually experience it. It's actually ever experienced. But when we are quiet, we are in tune with it. That is Brahman. Third, Vibhaktvena avabhasat. Brahman appears as many different things. We have not seen yet one substance that is able to appear as so many things. But Brahman is able to appear as form and formless, well-defined, not defined, as supported, not supported, as sentient, insentient, as transactional reality, as illusion. So if we can find something, the source of this whole world, this whole appearance, it has to be something that's able to appear in so many ways. It has to be able to appear as insentient and also sentient, because we see this in the world. It has to appear as something that has form and also formless. It has to appear as something that is transactional reality and it's also in dream, illusory. So can we point to anything in this whole creation which can appear in so many varied ways? It's difficult to find something like that. Therefore, Brahman is. The 7th portion, he continues with the proofs of Brahman. He says, Sukrita Prasiddhehe. The world is Sukrita. Sukrita, it's well made. Because the world is well made, it means there's a certain sentiency behind it. There's such a beautiful order. And whenever we see order in anything, somebody must have put that order in place. If we come to our home and everything looks nice and clean, it means somebody came and cleaned and moved the couch here, moved the chair here, created a lot of space, made it look nice. It means somebody came and did that. If we see an order in the job, in the workforce, in the company, if you see that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, it's because there's somebody there watching them, ordering them around. The same way, if there is order in the whole of cosmos, where the sun rises and sets, and the planets revolve around the sun, and the gravitational pull is held together, there's so much order, and everything stays in their dharma. Fire stays hot. The wind continuously blows. Water is fluid. Everything stays in their dharma. There must be a sentiency behind it. Therefore, Brahman is. The 5th reason, Rasatvat Prasiddhehe. Because we experience joy. Therefore, Brahman is. And we already talked about this in class, that the joy does not come from the object. In fact, we get the most joy when we drop the object, drop the ego, we get the most joy. And that joy we can experience in deep sleep. There we get the most joy. There's no ego, there's no object. It's bliss, oh bliss. But it's ignorance because we don't know that the joy is coming from Brahman. All the joy that we experience is actually coming from within, the source of joy, Therefore, Brahman it's not coming from these things. It's not coming from experiences or people. It's coming from within. Reason 6. Karya Karana Sanghata Kriya Darshanat. Because everything is sentient. Our body, our senses, our mind, our intellect. How did they become sentient? There's something that reveals them. There's something that illumines them. Like the body has no capacity to reveal me, but I can reveal the body. The senses have no capacity to reveal me, but I reveal the senses. The mind, the thought of the mind cannot know me, cannot reveal me, but I can reveal the thought. The ego cannot even fathom me, but I can reveal the ego. So there is something that reveals all of this. There's something that provides sentiency to all of this, without which they cannot really function. That is called Brahman. Because we see sentiency, action, life in all of this, there is that consciousness behind it. Reason number 7, Bhaya Abhaya Hetutvat. Brahman is the cause of fear to the ignorant and the cause of fearlessness to the wise. This is also very beautiful. Those who don't know Brahman are afraid. But those who know Brahman, they are absolutely fearless. Here I gave you the example of Alexander and a sannyasin coming in front of him. Alexander asks the sannyasin to come with him to Greece, and the sannyasin says no. And he takes out his sword, about to cut the head of the sannyasin, and says, "You can't do anything to me. I am that which pervades your sword, this head, this body, and even your body. Even if you chop my head off, you can't kill me. No weapons can destroy me." And with that, Alexander's sword just dropped. He didn't know how to respond because he had not met anyone so fearless before. So fear only comes when we see otherness. When we know that everything is us, then there's nothing to actually fear or be afraid of. So because the knowers of truth have become so incredibly fearless, there must be something that makes them fearless. What is that? That is Brahman. That is Brahman, the knowledge of Brahman. Here, now, after all of that, now he goes into the 8th section. In that 8th section, he shows that the world is in fear of Brahman. Then there's the analysis of happiness and the great Mahavakya, a great statement that reveals our infinitude. And he talks about transcending the sheaths. So continuing from the topic of fear, he says that the whole world stays in their dharma. The wind blows out of fear. The sun rises and sets out of fear. Fire and the moon, all of them stay in their dharma out of fear. And even death runs out of fear. Meaning that there is that which illumines all of these different elements, different beings, so that they stay in their dharma. Now, next, he now talks about an analysis of happiness. And we saw this also in class, where he takes up these 11 different types of beings. He says, look at the world. If you want to know who is going to be happiest in the world, it's going to be a young person. It's going to be a young person who has great health, physical health, mental health, who has lots of wealth, the capacity to enjoy, the one who's smart, who's skillful. That person is happy. But happier than that, 100 times that, is 1 unit for the Manushya Gandharva, the one who's endowed with subtle pleasures, music, creativity, ideas, research, thoughts, insights. They have more happiness. 100 times that is only 1 unit of the celestial and heavenly artists. They have it really good. They are very happy. 100 times that is only 1 unit for those whose worlds continue and continue for a long time. 100 times that is only 1 unit for those who are born in the world of gods. 100 times that is only 1 unit of those who reach the world of gods through special karmas. 100 times that is only 1 unit of happiness for all the deities, different deities. 100 times that is only 1 unit of happiness for Indra, the lord of all the deities of the world. 100 times his happiness is only 1 unit of happiness for Brihaspati, the guru of Indra. 100 times Brihaspati's happiness is only 1 unit for Prajapati, the lord of gross worlds. That's nothing for him. He's got a deeper sense. 100 times Prajapati's happiness is 1 unit of Brahma, the lord of the subtle worlds. Brahma here doesn't mean Brahman, it means the lord of the subtle worlds. So you can imagine that as the beings get subtle and subtle and subtle, they experience a greater sense of happiness and well-being. But guess what? Who's the happiest? Shrotriya akamahataha. Actually, the one who has the most joy is none of these beings. It's the one who has knowledge of the self and the one who has no desires. Because even in these realms, they can still have desires. They can still have subtle desires. But the knower of the self, the one who has realized their true being, they don't want anything anymore. They are fully content. They are whole. They are full. They are complete. Because they are not stung by desires, they have the most joy. Ironically, in life, we think that when we keep fulfilling our desires, achieving all of our goals, reaching and striving for more, that we will be happy. But actually, once we get what we desired, we only want more and more and more. And all that does is it leaves us tired, exhausted, weary, and unfulfilled. But that tiredness is necessary because then we begin to realize, whatever I want is not here in the world. Now it's time I turn within. The one who turns within and just revels in the self, satisfied in the self, content in the self, that being is the happiest, experiences the most joy. Because their nature is joy. So they don't need to enjoy, their very nature is joy. Now, what is the knowledge of this person? They know that the reality in this individual is the same as the reality in Brahma. Even Brahma, the Lord of the subtle worlds, the reality is the same. The reality in me and God is the same. The essence in me and God is the same. It's just all about dropping the identification with the sheets, transcending the sheets. So the one who has this knowledge transcends the sheets, meaning drops the identification with each sheath, knowing that I am not the food sheath, not the vital air sheath, not the mental sheath, not the intellectual sheath, not the bliss sheath. I am that one self. And then coming to that, knowing that actually I am all. So the first part, remember, is that I am not this. The second part is actually I am all of this. I am that existence, consciousness, bliss. And all of these sheets are actually appearing in me. All of it is an appearance in me. But my real nature is existence, consciousness, bliss. And therefore, the second question was, does an ignorant person attain Brahman when they drop the body? Answer is no. But because here it says, in the third question, answering the third question, the one who knows Brahman, realizing the self, they attain Brahman, dropping identifications. So this is an answer to question 3, but by answering question 3, question 2 gets answered. That the one who knows Brahman drops the identification with all of these sheaths and attains Brahman. Now, in the 9th one, he says that the knower of Brahman is fearless and the knower of Brahman is not burnt by the ego. So the knower of Brahman is fearless. Earlier we saw that the one who is identified with the mind, total mind, is fearless because they are united with totality. They feel a sense of totality. Here, the knower of Brahman is fearless because there's no other thing. There's no other thing but the self. And therefore, na bibheti, kutaschaneti. There's no cause for fear. What is fear? F-E-A-R. False emotions appear real. So there's no fear. And the knower of Brahman, sometimes what would happen is that ego comes. The ego comes and says, Kimaham sadhu na karavam. Why didn't I do this good deed? Kimaham papam akaravam iti. Why did I do this negative deed? Not that they'll do something bad, but let's say if they make a mistake or they step on something by mistake, they won't be touched by the ego or ahankara because both are Atman. Ube kye vesha ete atmanagas prunite. What happens is this. When one starts to gain this knowledge, one starts to become pure, they want to purify themselves to such a great extent that everybody has to be pure, everything has to be pure. But remember, that'll never happen. Every mind is composed of sattva, rajas, and tamas. So it takes a good amount of purity to realize the self. But after that purity, what is required now is not perfection, but transcendence. Once purity to a great height is reached, what is required is not perfection, but transcendence. Some seekers get lost thinking that they have not realized the self because they're striving for perfection. But in reality, the ego has no relation with the self. And therefore, they should just realize who they are and transcend. The minute we attach the self with the ego, again, that's falling into ignorance. Again, that is saying, I'm abiding in Atman, I'm not abiding in Atman. Today I feel like I'm Brahman, tomorrow I don't feel like Brahman. Why am I not getting this? Again, one falls into ignorance. There's actually, when you look at it very deeply, there's no abiding in the self because you are the self. So you can't practice being yourself. Or you can't put forth effort to be yourself. You are the self. When we say abiding in the self, it means don't abide in the not self. Don't take yourself to be something other than the self. Because the self, you already are. You don't need to do anything. You already are that. Just be, just remain. The minute we abide in the not self, then again we have, so to say, fallen. Can't fall because we are the self, but so to say, fallen. Therefore, at the end, or once the mind is greatly purified, what is required is transcendence. Even this ego has to be dropped. We have to stop looking at other people, stop looking at ourselves and being critical. our only focus is that reality, that truth, that we are. And with this, Brahmananda Valli is concluded. Okay, so I'll just stop there. We'll say the closing prayer, and then if there are any questions, we'll take that up. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.